Welcome. Good morning. This is Miss Moore. I'm the FDDLC math teacher for the summer. Remember our goal was to be math masters, and we're going to try to be math masters by the end of this summer. Today, we're doing lesson 2, which is going to cover ratio and proportions. First, we're going to do a little review of order of operation. Do anyone remember the rules for the order of operations? Good. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. That is correct. The first rule is parenthesis, exponent, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. Now today, as I said, we're going to do a little review. I'm going to show you a video of the review of order of operation, just to kind of bring you back from when we had our last lesson. We don't want you to forget, because remember, our goal is to be math masters. The video is where you can shuffle a little bit, and the name of the video is Juju on That Beat Remix. And while you're watching the video, you're learning your rules of operation. Let's shuffle.
We the best. Hey, yo, they got this thing called order of operation. They don't want us to have order, but I'm making sure we got order. Hey, Miss G, go on, show them what to do with them parentheses.
Parentheses and brackets, that's where you start. Explanation is repeating numbers, it's not hard. Multiply, divide, at the same time. From left to right, keep the order, you'll be fine. Last but not least, we have add or subtract. Still left to right, hey, get back. Hey. Order of operations, hey. Order of operations, hey. Order of operations, hey. Order of operations. Parentheses and brackets, that's where you start. Explanation is repeating numbers, it's not hard. Multiply, divide, at the same time. From left to right, keep the order, you'll be fine. Last but not least, we have add or subtract. Still left to right, hey, get back. Hey. Order of operations, hey. Order of operations, hey. Order of operations, hey. Order of operations.
Well, did you enjoy the video? Now, what we're going to do, we're going to start our lesson on ratio and proportion. I will have shown you another video with some of the basic rules, and then our proportions, and then I will come back and explain to you the ratio and the proportion afterward.
The first topic we will be talking about is basic ratios. So here's the first problem. There are 16 kittens and 24 puppies. Write the number of puppies to kittens. In ratios, it's very important to focus on the order in which the problem is asking. Here, it's asking puppies to kittens. Therefore, we can write it in one of 3 ways. 24 to 16. Using the word 2. We can write 24 colon 16, or we can write it as a fraction, 24 over 16.
Okay, now those were some of the basic rules of ratio. What we're saying here today is that you can use 2 as one of your problems in solving your ratio, or you can use the column. And your third one, you can use fractions. There are 16 kittens and 24 puppies. Write the number of puppies to the kittens. So if we have 16 kittens to 24 puppies, so what are the difference in the 16-20 portion? We could use the fraction part, and if we divide the 16 and the 24 as a fraction, or you can use 16 to 24, the basic ratio. Did you understand that? Did everyone get that? There's 3 ways you can do it. 2, the column, and the fraction. Now let's move on, and we'll go a little further, and I'll show you some examples before we get to our worksheets. You have any questions, you can ask me, but make sure at this point that you have some paper and pen on the side. Okay, once again, we'll be talking about proportion. So watch your segments.
Proportions are 2 ratios or fractions that are equal. So the way we can talk about this as is over of is equal to part over whole. Our first fraction is pretty much what we already know. The second fraction is what we are looking for, what we need to find, whether that be the part or the whole. There are 2 ways of solving proportions. The first method involves equivalent ratios. So here we have 60 over 42, and we want to find an equivalent ratio to 60 over 42 with the denominator as 7. So we are looking from the 42 to the 7. How did we get from 42 to 7? We know that all we have to do is divide by 6. In fractions, you always have to do the same thing to the numerator that you are doing to the denominator and vice versa. Therefore, since we divided our 42 by 6, we also have to divide our 60 by 6, which gets us 10. So the equivalent ratio to 60 over 42 is 10 over 7.
Okay, did you understand the method 1 of the proportion? Method 1 of equal ratio. As she stated, your denominator and your numerator. We are looking for the part. And our part was we found 7 to go into 42 will go 6 times. So whatever this down here that you divide by on the bottom, you're going to have to do the same for the top. So if you divide 7 into 42 and you get 6, then you got to divide 6 into 60, which will give you 10. That's your first method. Do you understand that? Now we're going to show you the second method.
Our next method is called the cross multiplying or butterfly method. We have the same fractions. However, instead of finding an equivalent ratio, we are going to cross multiply. So you're going to multiply the numbers that are across from each other. So the first thing we have here is 60 and 7. So we're going to do 60 times 7 and 42 times x. 60 times 7 gives us 420. 42 times x simply gives us 42x. In order to solve an equation, you must do inverse operations to isolate the variable. We are going to divide both sides by 42 to show that the 42 cancels out, and 420 divided by 42 gives us 10. So our answer is 10 equals x, the exact same.
So, did you see that? That's method 2, cross multiplication. Whatever you do, you crisscross 7 into 60. You divide 7 into 60, which is a crisscross, and it would give you 42. 420. And then you have 42 divided by x, which would give you 42 over x. Whatever you divide by one side, you do it to the other side. We'll cross out this 42 over x and 42 over 2 and you'll get X, and then you divide 42 into 420, and you'll get 10. So your answer is 10 equal X. Now, do you understand that? There's two methods that you're doing. Is there any questions? Before we go any further, before we do our worksheets, please let me know whether you understand method 1 and method 2 of proportions and ratio. Okay, now we can look at our worksheet. Proportion ratios. You're going to write whether each pair of these ratios forms a proportion or not. You know, I'm going to work number 1 for you. But first, before I do that, on your worksheet, I want to find out, did everybody understand how to tell whether a problem is a proportion or is not a proportion? Do I have any questions before we get started on our worksheet? Great, okay. I'm going to do number 1 and number 2 for you. And then I want you to go through the rest of them. I'll give you about 20 minutes to tell me whether it's a proportion or it's not a proportion. Let's look at number 1. We know we start at the bottom. We divide 7 into 21, and 7 into 21 will go 3 times. And what would 3 times 7 give us? 3 times 7 would give us 21. If you divide 12 into 36, it would give us 3. And 3 times 12 is 36. So we know that is a proportion because we can divide and have nothing left in the proportion of the problem. Let's look at the other one, number 2. Is there a number that can go in 6? Can 6 go into 11 the even number time? Right, no, it cannot. Can 3 go into 17 the even number time? Correct. You are correct. So would this be a proportion or would it be not a proportion? Can someone tell me that? Okay, so we do know the difference between the proportion and not a proportion. So you're correct on number 1 is proportion and number 2 is not a proportion. Now I'm going to give you 20 minutes to write whether each pair of these ratios forms a proportion or not a proportion. Okay, I'm done. You're going to pause for a minute. You're going to write whether each pair of ratio forms a proportion. I'm going to give you, I went over number 1 and I went over number 2. So you're going to have those 2 correct. As I always tell you, that we're working towards our goal. So you can stop and start your video and work your worksheet. I'm going to give you at least 20 minutes and then we'll come back and we'll go over it. You may start your video. Welcome back. We're back now. We're going to come back and we're going to go over the proportion of the ratio. We're going to tell me whether each pair of the ratios forms a proportion or not. Can someone tell me number 3? What do you have for number 3? That is correct. It's not a proportion. What about number 4? Right, it is a proportion. Number 5. Are you following along with me? I'm not going too fast. Do you know why it's a proportion? Let's look at Number 5. We got 24 and we got 60. Are there any numbers that you can find that would cover 24 and the 60, or 10 and 25? So what is it? I'm waiting on you. Number 5. That's correct. Number 5 is correct. Let's look at number 6. Is number 6 a proportion? We got 6 in the 48, got 7 in the 52. No, that's not a proportion. You're correct. Number 7, let's look at number 7. We have 17 over 8, and we got 1/2. You can just look at that problem and tell me that it is not a proportion. You got 17 over 8 and you got 1/2. It's not a proportion. Let's look at number 8. Number 8 has 5 over 15 and 3 over 9. Come on, Jan. You're sitting over here on the side. You have not said a word. Let me see. Do you understand? Do you understand it? Okay. Let me let you answer that. I don't want anybody to say anything. I want Jan to answer number 6. 8, I'm sorry. Number 8. Come on. Tell me what is the proportion or not. What did you have on your worksheet? Great. That's great. You are right. Well, why are you so quiet? You know how to do it? Okay, I'm going to let you do the next one. I want you to try number 9. Tell me what is number 9. You got 56 over 72, and you got 7 over 9. No, hold up. Let her answer. I want her to do it. Great. You're great. That's fine. You can take the next one. Come on, John, do number 10. It is a proportion. That's correct. Everybody understand so far? You have done a great job on your worksheet. If there anybody in here, don't be afraid, because you know how some people will sit quiet and they won't say anything and they'll say they understand and they don't understand, but you're going to see it again sometime down the road. So don't be afraid, because everybody in here are trying to learn to be math masters. That's our goal. Okay. Thank you. Have a good day.